The state's Job and Family Services Department says of the 28.5% of claims that have been denied, none have been because of COVID-19 related reasons, such as lack of childcare or concerns about virus protection in the workplace. Businesses say they need to reopen, but many workers say they can't go back or are worried about doing so. So they're relying on assistance, but it will run out on July 25th. Statehouse correspondent Jo Ingles has more.
This Central Ohio carryout and bar has opened for business again, but the owner, who doesn't want to go on camera, says his employees don't want to come back to work.
We've had a significant loss of employees that don't want to come back because they're making a lot of money to not work. So the unemployment is, we're competing with the government to pay people to come back to work. With us, we're in a service industry, so for us to threaten our employees that they either come back or report them to unemployment, well, then you get people coming back that are not in a good mood, and that's not good when you're in the service industry.
Hannah Halbert with Policy Matters Ohio says workers in that situation are required to come back on the job. And if there's reluctance, the problem can be solved by paying those employees more.
So I understand that people may think that, may be concerned, may wring their hands over this. Goodness gracious, we can't have folks making a livable wage because they won't go back to work. But the reality is that that's not really a barrier to bring people back. It's not allowed under current law. It's not in the exceptions that we're asking for the state to be clear on. But it does tell us something important about the labor market and what we're asking people to do and put at risk.
But some workers say going back to work puts them or someone they provide for at risk. Brittany Whiting has been on unemployment, but has been called back to her job at a factory. And she's worried about leaving her 5 kids unattended.
I don't have childcare. There's no way to get it because they're not open yet. And then even if they do open on the 31st, it's going to be limited. I do believe they cut it down to 6 kids per classroom. And if anybody's ever had childcare before, we all know that there's a waiting list anyway. So when you're going from like 20 kids to 6 kids, we're all going to be on a very lengthy waiting list.
Whiting is right. Child cares that open next week will be limited to 9 preschool or school-age students per room. The max for infants and toddlers is 6 kids per room. The state is requiring employers to maintain social distance, to monitor employees' health, to keep their workplaces clean, and to provide sanitizer. But there's concern some workplaces might not be safe enough for employees who have or live with someone with medical conditions. Some Democratic representatives are backing a bill that would allow at-risk workers to continue to collect unemployment for 39 weeks and to prohibit the state from denying them benefits because of COVID-19 related reasons.
Basically, what we're trying to do is basically keep people safe, not having them choose between their life or their livelihood. And so
David Leland knows many Republican lawmakers don't like the bill, and he says keeping workers protected ultimately falls on one Republican.
Because the governor is going to be, through the department, is going to be creating rules and regulations that's going to affect unemployment.
But some employers say the state's required changes are expensive, and they're barely hanging on and need to make tough decisions too.
Anybody that's riding this gravy train is, when it's done, it's going to be done. I mean, you're not investing in the long term, you're investing in the short term. So hope they're not using all that money to go out and buy hot tubs and pool tables, that they're investing it, because when that money dries up, going to try to find a job, a lot of your employers aren't going to be around anymore.
But advocates for workers say this pandemic shows the economy may not have been as strong as once thought. While the state was near record low unemployment before the pandemic, 6 of Ohio's 10 most common jobs didn't pay enough to support a family of 3. And the Cleveland Federal Reserve reports just a third of Ohio's businesses that laid off workers expect to go back to full staffing soon, leaving hundreds of thousands of people without jobs and money. Jo Ingles, Statehouse News Bureau.